Set in the Kanto region, 7 schools are battling it out for supremacy with an emphasis on the Magatama, those claw beads you see often in anime. They actually have deep spiritual and religious significance and have been found as far back as the final Jumon period, 1000 to 300 BC. At Nanyo Academy, we're introduced to one of the main characters, Kokin Shuya. Meanwhile, another one of the main characters is outside kicking around the other students. Literally. Her name is Hakufu Sonsaku. She's an idiot and a battle junkie. Then comes her first serious fight of the show against a guy twice her size, which she loses. Shuya comes running and we're offered a bit of world building. Regrouping in the infirmary, it's revealed our mains know each other. And it comes with the introduction to the third main character, Saji Genpo. He's very much so a ledger, but Sonsaku can see through him when she's paying attention. There's some foreshadowing telling us that Saji knows the other two are important, and when they retire to Shuya's house, they find Sonsaku's mom waiting for them. Apparently Shuya's dad asked her to stay with them, and she shows why she probably shouldn't have been asked.
I can't just let the two of you live alone together, can I?
But we're cousins.
Well, that makes things even more delicate. It's just like a typical erotic novel setup.
And a night brawl against the big guy from earlier introduces us to the final main character, the freak Shime Ryomo. This is Ikkitousen, Battle Vixens. On the way to school the next day, we get more world building. School brings some current event dialogue and a chance encounter between Sonsaku and Shime, but it's just a passing glance. Though a meeting between Shime and Saji foreshadows the next conflict. After school, the cousins are heading home, but Sonsaku has to run back to her locker for her bead. While she's gone, Shuya gets jumped by a bunch of guys on orders to beat him down, while another freak goes after Sonsaku. Shuya is bloodied, but he wins and heads to help Sonsaku, only to be blocked by Saji. Meanwhile, Sonsaku is winning her fight, but Shime shows up and takes down the freak. She wants to fight Sonsaku herself, and the way she'd be able to do that is to take out Freak Boy. Now it's a chick fight. Shuya still manages to hobble his way to Sonsaku while Shime struggles to put her down. Also, she wears an eye patch because she's heterochromatic. Very chunibyo of a character, but it makes sense for when it was produced. And just when it looks like Shime puts Sonsaku down for the count, she gets back up and puts one more move on her attacker. And we're hinted that Shuya knows more about what's going on, not just with the Magatama, but the fights and also Sonsaku. Fast forward to housework and small talk about what happened. Shuya provides a flashback about the events between the girls, which leads into Saji manhandling a nurse before visiting Shime in the hospital. They make small talk about recent events. Meanwhile, Shuya finds that Sonsaku has left a dummy in bed and ran off. Wandering around town, she gets picked up by some idiots who bait her with food. We already know this will end badly for them, but this time it's not Sonsaku. Another girl shows up and expedites the thrashing. Her name is Ikkitousen. Back on the street, they watch a street fight before Sonsaku steps in when one of them pulls a knife. Then it's time for a brawl. After the fact, the guy introduces himself as Genjo Kakoton before running off. Shuya finally finds Sonsaku back at school, while we get a lot more foreshadowing, including a group of 3 now targeting Sonsaku, a green-haired girl named Hosen Ryofu, and a guy in bandages named Chue Totaku. Now that Sonsaku is finally practicing martial arts, Shuya gets called out by the big guy. I should probably start using his name by now. It's Gakushu. They meet in a cake shop, and he drops some recent events on Shuya. On the way back, he tries to piece everything together, but gets jumped. Again. But these guys want Sonsaku, and they use Shuya as a hostage to lure her out. Shuya manages to take a few down before Sonsaku shows up, but the guy who is after her gets put in his place by his superior. His name is Shigi Taishiji, and he makes a deal with Shuya. If he can land even one hit, Shigi will leave. Otherwise, he's going to fight Sonsaku when she shows up. And right when Sonsaku shows up, Shuya manages to land a hit and Shigi honors his word. But Sonsaku is aggro that Shuya took a hit and goes at Shigi only to get BTFO'd. And just like last time, she keeps getting back up and eventually starts using actual technique to land a solid hit against Shigi. She does get KO'd by Shigi, who then leaves, but gets knifed by 2 of his supposed allies. At the same time, Saji gets in a fight with Hosen, loses, and she goes to goon over Chue. Now, completely lacking the story context, this all looks really fucking weird. But all throughout the story, we get narrator lore drops about what's actually happening, and to the average Westerner, you're probably not going to get it right away, even though the episode makes it pretty clear. This is a dramatic retelling of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the Chinese historical novel written in the 14th century set from 184 to 280 AD. About the end of the Han Dynasty and the start of the Jin Dynasty. Each of the characters in Ikkitousen corresponds to one of the characters of the story. Shuya is Zhou Yu, the military general and strategist under Sun Tzu of the Eastern Han Dynasty, and Sun Tzu's counterpart is Son Saku. Saji's counterpart is Zuo Si, a legendary philosopher of the period, and Shimei is Lu Meng, the military general and politician who served under Sun Quan, with the main antagonist of Season 1 being Chue, who represents Dong Zhou, an absolutely unhinged warlord who enjoys torturing POWs for entertainment. And you heard me right, I said Season 1. The manga began publishing in April of 2000 by author Yuji Shiozaki, and would conclude in August of 2015 with 187 chapters in 24 volumes. Then came its sequel, Shin Ikkitousen, which began publishing the same year before going on hiatus in 2024 and finally returning in April of 2025 in Young King Bull. So it's an ongoing story. I could only find it has around 40 chapters in 5 volumes at present, but I don't know the actual number. Meanwhile, on the anime side, JC Staff produced Season 1 of 13 episodes, airing in the summer of 2003. Studio Arms produced Season 2, Dragon Destiny, at 12 episodes, airing in winter of 2007, and Season 3, Great Guardians, at 12 episodes, airing in summer of 2008. Studio T&K produced Season 4, Extreme Executor, yes really, at 12 episodes, airing spring of 2010. Then back to Arms for the 1-episode OVA Shugaku Epic Battle, airing in November 2011. The 2-episode OVA Extravaganza Epoch, airing December 2014. The 3-episode OVA Western Wolves, airing January to February 2019. And finally, 3 episodes of Shin Ikkitousen in May of 2022. And while the series did start out strong enough, especially with the weight of JC Staff behind it, it's kind of tapered off. Probably because it was caught up to the manga, but it didn't decide to do the Naruto thing and just invent filler. And you gotta admit, getting anime across 22 years, that's damn impressive for such a niche subject matter. Which is why I think the series kind of slowly failed as an anime. It's just that there isn't that much interest in Chinese history and fiction, because there's a lot of fiction mixed into the Three Kingdoms story. The story itself has been translated into English, so you can pick up the book and read it for yourself. There have been at least 2 TV series from 1994 to 2010 about it, and Koei has a 14-part game series which started in 1985, with the 14th game being published in 2020. Also Dynasty Warriors, all 10 games, also published by Koei. And that's just a few examples without going on any major tangents. So with all of the options to experience the Three Kingdoms story, why would you pick Ikkitousen? That's why. High school kids beating the shit out of each other and panty shots. JC Staff did not hold back on the fan service. And had they made this series 10 years later, when Zebek was setting the standard for how far you could push ecchi and still see airtime, then Ikkitousen would have gotten a lot more naked. Not like that's a bad thing. It also helps that in spite of being passed around, the art direction remains consistent. So major kudos to all studios involved. As far as accuracy goes to the source material, and by that I mean the Three Kingdoms, not the manga, it's loosely based on it, with one of the biggest changes being a lot of Joshikosei mains, the original characters being all men, though most of them do find the same endings as they do in the novel. Either way, if you're not into history, then you'll probably find whichever version of the story you choose to be boring anyway. Not that it's a bad story. The fan service and sporadic comedy helps to keep things interesting. It's just more niche than most, being ancient China. And I know I got bored during the exposition between characters, but it clearly has its audience. Otherwise, Koei wouldn't have 2 currently running game franchises based off of it. I am the NBT. This has been the Noble Weeaboo. Like or don't, sub or don't, and thank you for watching. Ikkitousen is complicated, specifically because of all the internal politicking going on between the characters since it's supposed to represent a more well-known story. But it has its audience and it leans into the identity Yuji Shiozaki crafted for it, filling a very particular niche. Or you can just blob and watch girls rip each other's clothes off. That always draws a crowd. Also, Ikkitousen is the reason Asuka is the main protagonist of the Hanzo girls in Senran Kagura. It was supposed to be Katsuragi, but the studio feared a potential lawsuit from similarities to Sonsaku, so they changed protags. Don't know why they thought that. The only similarities they have is kicking and panty shots, but I'm not a Japanese law expert and Katsuragi is still in the game. So at this point, who really cares?